I had the pleasure of speaking with Heidi Clements, TV producer and writer known for the hit show Baby Daddy. You might also know her from her amazing storytelling on both Instagram and TikTok at Welcome to Heidi. She is incredibly authentic, raw, and just a pleasure to speak to, so I hope you enjoy this conversation. Hi, Heidi. Thank you for taking the time out of your day for this conversation. So I know even before blowing up on social media, you built your career in screenwriting. My project is all about how screen media, such as TV shows, has helped perpetuate ageist stereotypes. And I wanted to see, what role do you believe screen media has played in the ageism that we see today?
I mean, I think it's really sad that there aren't a lot of shows about women, in particular in their 50s, which I used to work on a show called Baby Daddy, which was all about young people.
Yeah.
And when it ended, I decided to only write about women over 50. And
Mhm.
that's been since 2017. And I've not been able to sell a project yet. And I have about 5 different scripts that I've written about women over 50. And I think people are afraid to tell
Mhm.
stories about, especially about women over 50 for some reason, despite the fact that anytime a television show was made about women over 50, it's always been successful.
Right.
So I think the problem is not that people don't want to see it. I think the problem is that the people who are in charge of making programs don't want to deal with their own ageism and their own aging. And so they don't want to
Mhm.
see it on television.
Right. That actually is a really great segue to the next question. As a TV writer and producer, of course, would you say that the ageism in the film industry has gotten better since you started?
Yeah, it really has gotten better because now there are shows like Grace and Frankie, which is about women in their 80s, and there are movies about older women. And, not just in movies and television, but also on the runway. Recently, there were so many fashion shows that used women over 40 in their runways. And I think
Mhm.
we're definitely starting to see a change, and we're starting to see, women like supermodel Paulina Porizkova, um, who talks often about ageism. And I think we're starting to see things change in the beauty industry, in the fashion industry, and lastly will be the television industry, because I think that most people who buy programming think that young people don't want to watch stories about older women. And I think my social media accounts prove that wrong, because almost all of my followers are under 35.
Definitely. Yeah, I heard you talking about your demographic in a different podcast, and I found that really interesting. Um, do you see other creators in your space that are doing something similar or that would also?
I mean, I see a lot of women that do
Mhm.
stuff about aging. I don't see them doing it exactly the same way that I
Right.
do it. Um, but there's lots of us out there that are preaching, this is not, we are not dead.
Mhm.
There's a lot of life in you when you hit 50. And I think what's most interesting about, for me, about the decade of 60s, which is what I'm in now, is that I feel like you finally really become the person you were always meant to be, without all of societal's bullshit rules being placed on you, that you finally, stop giving a fuck about what everybody else thinks.
Definitely. And I'm sure you know plenty of other people that also work in the industry. Is this like an ongoing conversation that you have with them on the topic of
No,
ageism?
actually,
Or?
it should be a conversation I have with them. But every
Mhm.
time I've tried to pitch to people in the industry, they don't want to hear it. Yes, actresses for sure want to
Yeah.
hear it. And people say they want to make these shows, but then they just don't. We'll
Right.
see. I hope things are changing. I really do, because I really want to make my version of the Golden Girls, and I think that would be really fun and well received.
Right. Well, I'm sure that as your account grows, and I'm sure more executives will see
I
uh,
hope so.
just how, yeah, just that there's an audience for this, and that people
Yeah.
are interested. Um, so having kind of, well, not switched, but now dipping your toes in both traditional media and social media, do you see, or how do you see the role of traditional versus social media evolving in challenging societal norms around aging? Do you see a
Well,
difference?
I think that I had a hard time. It's hard to reach young people
Hmm.
through traditional television or movies. Like if you make a movie about somebody my age, they may not go to see it. But the fact
Right.
that I can speak directly to them
Mhm.
as a character, I am my own brand, I am my own character, I think I'm sort of reverse engineering the concept. So like
Right.
you get to know me first and not what my show is about.
Mhm.
And I think that I'm sort of bucking the traditional system of how things get made, maybe. So they
Right.
get to know me and like me as a character.
Hmm. Yeah. And speaking on also your demographic and the people that follow you, the internet can be a pretty awful place, but from what I've seen, at least, your community seems to be quite warm and welcoming. Has it
I'm
always
a
been like that?
lucky girl. It has always been like that. I don't know how I got so lucky. I think
Mhm.
maybe it's because I am unapologetically authentic with who I am. And so it's pretty obvious that you can't say anything to hurt me. It does
Right.
hurt me sometimes. And the bad comments are so few and far between.
Mhm.
I feel very lucky about that. And I feel like it's a sign that maybe I'm doing the right thing.
I'd say so. I'd say so. I think I've seen very few comment sections that look like yours does.
I know,
So
it's crazy.
there's something
I
right
know.
there.
It really
Um,
is. It's such a
yeah,
gift. It really is such a beautiful gift, I have to say.
yeah. And when you do get those few negative comments, do you react to those, or do you just kind of let
I
them happen?
usually repost them
Okay. Yeah.
and make fun of them
Mhm.
because but my followers usually handle it for me,
Fair enough. That's what I would expect for
which
sure.
is nice. The only
Yeah.
comments that I get that upset me lately are about being Jewish. I
Mhm.
think that people think that if you're Jewish, it means that you are okay with people dying in Palestine. And
Right.
of course, I don't feel that way. But,
Mhm.
I also feel that we've completely forgotten about what started this whole thing.
Yeah.
So those are the comments that upset me. I feel like they're very ignorant, and I
Mhm.
don't think social media clearly is not a place to talk about all of that because people are just filled with so much misinformation. It's frightening. Those
Yeah.
comments hurt me, but again, those are very few and far between. And those I delete and then I block them.
Great. I think that's the perfect response for
Yeah.
sure. So I also read in another interview that you did, where you said people think you're dead at 30, you're dead at 40, you're dead at 50. I'm 63 and just at the beginning of my third act. First of all, love that. But also, could you maybe share a moment or event that was pivotal in shaping that perspective on aging?
Um, I don't know. It just kind of happened. It's weird,
Yep.
you just sort of you wake up on these large
Mhm.
birthdays and you feel different for some
Yep.
reason. I really felt different the second I turned 40. I felt different the second I turned 50. And I felt different the second I turned 60. I think the thing that happened when I turned 60, which I've talked about, is my friends actually told me how important I was to them, which had never happened before in such a sort of open way.
Mhm.
And I think that helped me realize that I was important and I still had things to say. But the truth is, social media has reminded me that I'm not dead, that I have
Mhm.
things to say, and that I have work to do for other
Right.
people, that I have lived a life that is unconventional and that might be helpful to other
Mhm.
people. And so it really is the upside of um, these apps that are usually traditionally not kind.
Mhm.
And it's been so eye-opening that of all of the places that I've tried to talk about how I feel, from blogging to podcasting to Instagram to all the things that I tried in the past that were more traditional, this was the first time that I reached people that were actually listening and wanted to hear more.
Right. Right. And was that the motivation for you to start creating content? Was it?
No, I had no motivation,
Huh?
actually. A friend of mine who is an actress named Krista Allen had switched over to TikTok
Mhm.
because she wasn't getting jobs and she was making money on TikTok. And she said, I just think that I spent a lot of time with you, and I love all of the things that you have to say, and I think you would do well on TikTok. And so you can actually see the evolution of my account on TikTok because, the first video was just me standing there with no words and no music. And then I started dancing, and then I started
Mhm.
telling stories. And it was all because she kept urging me to do more and be more and step more into my own authenticity. And that's how it evolved. People spend a lot of time worrying about the outcome. Don't worry about the outcome. Just do it
Right.
live. And what's the worst that could happen? You fail and you get off,
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Well, definitely tell your friend that we're all grateful that she got you onto the platform. That's amazing.
I
Um,
will.
um, so this last question, my mother is now in her late 50s, and I see her grapple with the idea of aging. What
Mm.
is your kind of main piece of advice you'd give women over 50 in order to help them deal with aging?
I think the problem in this country in particular, but in the world, is in the messaging that we receive from the moment that we're born, that old is bad.
Mhm.
And that for women over 50, the reason why we become invisible is because someone has decided that we are no longer sexually viable.
Mhm.
And for some reason, women's sexuality is the only thing that they are worthy of being judged for. And so I guess I just say to just really focus on giving less fucks about what other people say. It just doesn't matter what other people say. It doesn't matter what other people think about how you're living your life. And to realize that you've lived most of your life based on some set of rules that you didn't even make up, that someone else told you was the way that you were supposed to live your life. And now you have the opportunity to actually live your life the way you want to live it. And my favorite quote is from Glennon Doyle in the book Untamed. And basically, boiled down, she said, your job in this life is to disappoint as many people to avoid disappointing yourself. And I think after 50, you should stop disappointing yourself and start living for yourself. It's not selfish.
I love that.
I mean,
That-
maybe it's selfish, but selfish
Huh.
can be a good word.
Exactly. Exactly. There's nothing wrong with being selfish.
Yeah,
Well, thank you so much, Heidi,
you're
for
so
the time
welcome.
for answering these quick little questions. I
You are
appreciate
so welcome. Have a beautiful day. Have a beautiful life.
you as well. Thank you. And please
Be
keep
nice
doing
to
what you're doing.